The mayor believed coming into office that the single most important thing that he could do was to improve the educational system. He felt that it was absolutely a horrible, horrible shame that we were allowing 1 million children to go fundamentally uneducated. And how you then go about solving that problem, there are lots of different theories, and some things are tested and others are not. But it started with an ideological position that the way in which we were dealing with the problem was fundamentally wrong, and that there had to be accountability, that it had to vest in the mayor. And as a result, you kind of built a program around that point of view. Now, frequently we did start and look at things analytically. When we came into office and looked at the economic condition, we did a very careful analysis of where we thought we could compete. And that was less ideological and sort of more analytical. But I think it would be a mistake to assume that those two things really are separate. What he didn't do is make those decisions politically. And that's what distinguishes this mayor from, I think, any other mayor, certainly we've ever had, and virtually any other politician. Came in not being beholden to anyone because he hadn't accepted campaign contributions, but more fundamentally just has this view that his job is to do the right thing for New Yorkers, even if there is a negative consequence for him politically. And I will tell you, in the first 4 years that I was in government, in leading up to a re-election bid, I can't even count on one hand the number of times that a decision was taken where there was anything expressed about the political or election ramifications of that decision. People have no idea what an enormous asset that is for the city, and how it allows you to move an aggressive reform agenda forward. We benefited from not just the fact that the mayor paid for his own election, set that aside, but his mindset, which really is to just do the right thing. Political consequences be damned. I think there's a fair amount of truth to it. Now, you have to define what you mean. Does it mean that you actually have plans that you lay out in detail and then execute on? That's running something like a business. Does that work reasonably well in government, recognizing how much more complex government actually is? Yes, it does. Do sophisticated communication techniques and marketing of your ideas help? Do partnering with other people who can potentially bring value, whether it is from the private sector or foundations or other parties in the public sector, something that business tends to do better than the private sector does? Yeah. Does holding yourself accountable and reporting on how you did, which is more of a public sector, a private sector approach rather than a public sector approach, does that work in government? Absolutely. You know, the mayor issues a report card on how he's done relative to his campaign promises. We have put literally every piece of information about how government is doing on the internet, on a citywide performance reporting system, which we're quite proud of, which is kind of the Bloomberg for government. So all of those disciplines brought from the private sector to the public sector can work, but you fundamentally also have to recognize that government is different. Government in many ways is harder. On any one issue, and you're dealing with hundreds at a time, there are dozens perhaps of warring parties, all of whom have different agendas, some of which aren't clear at all, some of which are irreconcilable. And in many ways, your job is to manage conflict to reach an objective. And that is a very difficult thing. So you make a mistake coming in thinking, oh yes, I'll just bring the same disciplines from government, from business into government, and it'll work. That's not true. You have to be sensitive to the very significant differences between the two. I find, first of all, I would really object to the comment about Manhattan being the most racially segregated place. I think New York is, in fact, the most open place anywhere in the world. And one of the things we worked very hard on over the 6 years I was there, and I know the mayor and his team have continued to work hard on it, is building neighborhoods across the city that are more economically diverse, more racially diverse. And I do believe that we have been quite successful in doing that. Our housing plan built affordable housing is building affordable housing for 500,000 New Yorkers. I mean, that's more people than the city of Atlanta has, and every single one of those people will be living in a place they otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford to live in. Now, one problem we have had over the last several years, it's being mitigated somewhat now by the economic crisis, is because there's so many people who wanted to come here, because of the laws of supply and demand do fundamentally operate, prices go up. And that has an unfortunate consequence of pricing people out of the market, and in some neighborhoods gentrifying things. On the other hand, it really is the price of success. And the way we responded to it was by developing these programs that opened up opportunities for hundreds of thousands of people. But in general, it's very hard to fight the market. I don't think there are very many of us who would prefer the situation we have today in the economy and the consequences it has for people at every level of the economic spectrum to what we had a few years ago overall.